Welcome to Coffee and RPGs. My name is Solomon SK, and we got some amazing RPG and MMO gaming news for you guys, including Lost Ark finally hits over 1 million concurrent players, Genshin Impact version 2.5 is now available, patch update 1.5 for Cyberpunk 2077 has been released, NCSoft is currently working on 5 brand new IPs, Star Wars The Old Republic Legacy of the Sith expansion finally released as well, and Fallout 76 promises a 2022 roadmap. Consider hitting the subscribe button down below if you want to stay up to date with the latest RPGs, including JRPGs, MMOs, and the like. That being said, if you guys got your coffee ready or beverage of choice, let's go ahead and cover these articles together. Cheers to you guys. And as always, I'll have a 60-second version of today's video over at the right-hand corner in the form of a card if you want to go ahead and take a look at that. But anyways, let's go ahead and get some non-RPG news out of the way, but still really relevant to us gamers. And the first one here comes from PCGamer.com, and it says that Valve is partnering up with iFixit to sell Steam Deck replacement parts. Now, in my opinion, this is actually a really good thing. To me, it shows that Valve is being consumer friendly, because if you didn't know already, I believe Apple is being sued by various states, I believe in New York, or including New York, where a lot of businesses and small companies out there make a living by fixing gadgets and various phones and laptops and whatnot. But Apple made it such that with their particular products, they could only be open with proprietary tools that only they could have or manufacture. And so the only people that are able to fix your iPhone is Apple themselves, and people are concerned that they'll just jack up the prices and whatnot. Whereas with here, you don't need proprietary tools. If you need to fix your Steam Deck because something went wrong, well, you could always buy the part yourself and fix it yourself if you wanted to. And yeah, I think this is definitely a good thing for us consumers at the end of the day. Now, this one is something that I'm really looking forward to, and it says here that Amazon is working on a Blade Runner TV series with Ridley Scott producing. It's tentatively called Blade Runner 2099 with the original movie's director, Ridley Scott, as I said earlier. And yeah, I don't even know what to say because I'm pretty excited about this one. But apparently Amazon really wants to crank this out really fast, sooner than later, because sci-fi and fantasy is really big right now, and they're just coming out with the success from The Expanse that just recently ended. And man, The Expanse is just such a great sci-fi show. If you guys have Amazon Prime, highly recommend that one too. And admittedly, I'm probably even more excited about this one than the Blade Runner TV shows. It says here that Netflix is making a BioShock movie, and the reason why I'm more excited about this one is because, as far as I can tell, we actually haven't had a really good retro futurism TV show or movie, not that I could think of, and it's not a very popular sort of sci-fi genre. I mean, obviously the most popular one being the Fallout series. We also got the Outer Worlds, obviously BioShock, but I'm really curious as to how the aesthetics of this movie is going to turn out. So definitely keep you guys posted as we get more information. Heading on over to Altchar, and the developers of Escape from Tarkov might be playing around with the idea of permadeath. Now, if they did, again, this is probably just an idea that they're playing around with. Permadeath would only be possible in some areas of the map where the player would voluntarily have to go. Those particular areas would be radiation zones that would kill players after a certain amount of time they've spent there. Obviously, they'll also provide you with a lot of gear that will mitigate some of that radiation, but ultimately you can't stay there forever. So if you were to die in said area, you would lose your entire PMC to the point where you would actually have to reset the game and start over from scratch like you normally would from the beginning of a wipe, which is really hardcore. And the question arises, why would anyone risk so much to go to these places? Well, because of the legendary loot and quests. Like, is the temptation that big enough for you to actually go there and risk it for everything? Again, not something that they will actually do, but something they're playing around with. So definitely an optional thing if you wanted to try it out. It would seem like if they do implement it, but yeah, good luck, because that game, it's already hardcore as it is. Can't stop talking about the juggernaut that is Lost Ark. Having a lot of fun with this game, and I can't wait to be able to play it again after I make this video. And it says here that the Lost Ark hits 1.3 million players, becomes the second most concurrent players in Steam's history. Now, if you are curious, the previous number 2 spot was held by Counter-Strike Global Offensive, but the number 1 spot still goes to PUBG with over 3 million concurrent users. This is another big one, and this is Genshin Impact, another huge release as they release version 2.5, which is now available right now. Now, I'll have a link to this down in the pinned comment section below if you want to go ahead and check out every single little detail about this update, but I'm just going to briefly cover some of the most biggest points or the most interesting points here, because then it will just take a really long time, as you could see here. And of course, with every major update is a new character, and this is going to be a 5-star character called Miko, and she's an electro user that uses a catalyst as a weapon. There's also new equipment with Kagura's Verity, which is a 5-star catalyst as well. There's also a Oathsworn Eye, which is a 4-star catalyst, excuse me, but this is obtainable through their events that they have right now called the 3 Realms Gateway Offering event. And yeah, other than that, as a reward, you could also get Pryogens as well as weapon accession materials and more. There's also 2 new main stories with Raiden's Shogun story quest as well as Miko's story quest as well, obviously. There's also new enemies, there's also new recipes and name cards, new achievements, new furnishings, and yeah, this is a huge update. And again, you could actually check out some of the different things and optimizations, bug fixes, and other things like that. Really awesome thing that Genshin Impact is doing. And another game to receive a huge update would be Cyberpunk 2077 in their update 1.5 patch. And this isn't just a measly little update. This is actually gigabytes and gigabytes worth of new content fixes, and yeah, it was a pretty big patch. Now, probably one of the biggest parts of this update is the actual way the NPCs interact with you and the world to make it more immersive, which is, I really love that aspect of the update, as it says here that the way they take cover or position or reload and equip weapons and their dodging, blocking, reaction to death or reactions and death animations. Enemies are now much better at blocking and evading, and so it just makes the world seem more believable, which is always a good thing. Is probably one of the biggest selling points in Cyberpunk 2077 in my opinion. They've also improved the way that the crowd reacts within the world, as well as various NPCs are willing to get aggressive if you're out of line, and generally improved reactions to the player, better pathfinding hopefully, and less obvious despawning, which is admittedly one of the complaints that I had in the earlier versions of Cyberpunk 2077. The game's driving model has been changed as well, with a more in-depth clutch and gearbox simulation, as well as new burnout modes that builds on the way you actually could pull donuts. There's also changes to the world fixer quests, as V now has a standing with fixers throughout Night City. New fixer gigs will appear gradually in sets as your standing increases with them as well. There's 4 additional apartments, and you could actually get all of these apartments, and yes, they do share the same inventory spaces, and so you don't actually have to leave one weapon in one place and not to have it in another place. It's like the magic box, I guess, essentially from Resident Evil, if you're familiar with that. There's also a bunch of new weapons and attachments, and there's also new poses in photo mode. They've also rebalanced the perk systems, and so yeah, this also means that you're able to respec your character, and that will be free with this update as well. So yeah, lots of good things with this one. I know Cyberpunk 2077 had a rocky start, but when I see things like this, they're definitely, I think, going in the right direction and trying to gain some of that trust back from its fans, its consumers and whatnot. And yeah, I can't wait for more updates. I can't wait for the free updates and expansions as well that Cyberpunk, or not Cyberpunk, but CD Projekt Red is known for. And yeah, we'll see where they're headed in 2022. Also, really quick, Cyberpunk 2077 for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series S and X is now available alongside with version 1.5 that we just covered. And there's also a free trial that allows you to play the game for 5 hours. Now, if you had Cyberpunk 2077 for the PlayStation 4 or Xbox One version, I don't know why you would. It was, admittedly, that was pretty trash. You could actually upgrade for free, which is always really nice. Now, heading on over to MMORPG.com, it says here that NCSoft Video shows 5 upcoming new IPs, including MMORPGs, action, and battle royale. Now, I know NCSoft is one of those companies that you either love or you hate. They kind of remind me of Star Citizen in a way. With good reason, admittedly, I will admit that, even though I consider myself a fan of NCSoft, generally speaking, of course. But some of these titles include Project E, Project R, Project M, BSS, Blade and Soul S, and as well as TL. I believe it used to be called Project TL, and that was sort of the Lost Ark lookalike, with the isometric playstyle, but set in the Lineage universe. Admittedly, I can't wait for that one. I did play the original Lineage, and that game was a grind and drove me nuts. Don't know why I played that game for as long as I did, but anyways. And what's really cool, according to this article, is that all these games are set to release this year in 2022. Project R seems to be a mobile game, while Project M seems to be an interactive movie, and their bet is that Project E and TL are most likely to be MMOs in development. I haven't really heard from them last year. I know they're still kind of working on Guild Wars with ArenaNet. They have Aeon, which no one really plays anymore. Blade and Soul, which received a graphical update, but still no one really seems to be playing that game much anymore. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see where that goes, but I'm really hoping that NCSoft is really able to go out there and just really show us that they could still make MMOs. And yeah, I guess I'll just leave it at that. Now we got Star Wars The Old Republic in the news, as they just released Legacy of the Sith expansion, but do know I would really hesitate to call this an expansion in the traditional sense, because the past few expansions, as they put it, we've been seeing a lot of content updates, but at the very most, they're only like 2 hours worth of content, which is, I would argue, more like a update more than an expansion. Now with update 7.0, as it's also called, the planet of Manon and a new military campaign storyline, and of course new combat style systems has been added to the game. Now you could always check out the details of this update in their main website, and again, I'll have a link to this down in the pinned comment section below, and it's a pretty extensive, like all this. So obviously I won't be able to go through all of it without going over an hour in my video, so let's just go over the highlights right here. Obviously, new storyline, Legacy of the Sith. The new expansion sends players to the darkest depths, to the farthest reaches of the galaxy to pursue Darth Malgus. New planet Manon, as I mentioned earlier. There's also a new flashpoint called Elam, which takes place in a ruined Sith fortress. Galactic Seasons 2 actually has started as well. Increased the level cap to level 80 for subscribers. I believe they mentioned just subscribers, so if you're a free-to-play player, I don't know if that really affects you, unfortunately. They also introduced combat styles, and this is something I'm not exactly familiar with right now. I'll definitely have a in-depth review of 7.0 later down this week, maybe by Friday, hopefully. But as far as I can tell, within the story content of the game, you could actually use the weapons of other classes, but within the tech and the force user side of things. And so again, take this with a grain of salt, but from my understanding is that, again, within the story content of the game, if you are a shadow, which you obviously use with the dual blade lightsaber, you could actually just use a single lightsaber if you wanted. Or if you played, say, a commando and use a rifle, you could actually use a sniper rifle. So again, I'll have more information and just really nail down the details later on this week for sure, but pretty interesting to say the least. They've also improved the player experience, new character creations in this case, where you actually don't create the character in a hangar, but it's like, it's more flashy. It's more like, I don't know how else to explain it, just with a black background and just more impressive. But I will admit I do like the old style better, but that's just me. There's also new loadouts, and you could actually have presets to manage your gear, weapons, abilities, and hotbars as well, which is always nice to switch between PvE and PvP, Also new legendary items. PvP season 14 has also started too, if you're one of the hardcore ones that absolutely want to play ranked. I don't know why you would, but I'm just kidding. It's always cancer in ranked PvP. That's something that hasn't changed in a while. And they're also celebrating their 10-year anniversary, and they'll have NPCs within the fleet, of course within your corresponding faction, where you could actually buy 10-year anniversary toys and whatnot, and you'll probably be able to buy the previous anniversary toys as well. They allowed you to do that in previous years as well, and so lots of good things. Again, I'll have a dedicated video on update 7.0 and what I think of it, again, maybe around Friday or Saturday if you want to go ahead and check that out. So definitely subscribe and be on the lookout for that for sure. Next, we also have Baldur's Gate 3 in the news, as they also received an update, and this time you can actually play as the Barbarian, and the Barbarian actually has two subclasses, which is the Wild Heart Barbarian as well as the Berserker Barbarian. And just remember that Baldur's Gate 3 is still in early access, and so there's definitely a lot more improvements that are going to happen this year. We also got Final Fantasy 14 in the news, and they're gearing up to demolish homes again. Now, it goes on to say that demolition itself was turned off back in December in response to the ridiculous queue times during the early days of Endwalker, but it seems Square Enix is ready to flip the switch back on for those bulldozers. Starting on March 9th, demolition will start to occur as normal, meaning if you want to keep your house, you're going to have to visit every once in a while. Now, to those of you who are collectors, especially those of you who play Guild Wars 2, it says here that Guild Wars 2 teases End of Dragon soundtrack and vinyl collector release. And this is admittedly pretty cool. I love it when companies actually do these. I'm assuming this is in limited limited production. And so now to you anime MMORPG fans out there, we got closers in the news as they release a quality of life patch with content tweaks, footprint effects, and a selfie mode as well. And yeah, probably one of the most interesting parts of this update is the fact that you can actually equip a footprint costume that applies distinctive visuals when a character's feet slaps against the ground. So I guess it just kind of leaves a trail behind you, whatever you know, anime stuff you're into. But yeah, I don't know. Next, we got Fallout 76 as it promises previews of upcoming content updates, as well as a 2022 roadmap full of quote-unquote exciting plans. Now, the update itself hasn't been released yet, but it will be later this month, so definitely check back to this channel as I will cover it as soon as they release it. But before then, as it says, players can look forward to an in-depth look at the invaders from the Beyond update in a developer dive video, a preview of season 8, as well as a new community calendar for the spring season. Now, I'm definitely rooting for this next game we're about to talk about, even though I really don't want to play it as it sits, because to be honest, I don't think it really aged very well. But the Lord of the Rings Online producer says, we not only want to maintain the value of the IP, but grow it, which is, again, I hope they do. Now, we have the Lord of the Rings TV series being made right now with some controversy, and I won't really cover that as this isn't a political channel, but I think this game could be done tremendously well. In my opinion, it just needs a little bit more oomph, maybe a remaster if their graphic engine allows it. And if they at least have that bare minimum, I think they could attract more people into its player base, but we'll see. I don't know what kind of stuff that they have, but this year I'll definitely keep a lookout and just see where they go. And hopefully they'll, again, be able to grow their IP into a new thriving player base, hopefully, because typically with MMOs this old, they generally, yeah, it's not good news generally speaking, but we'll see. Probably the third time I'm talking about this, so I do apologize for sounding like a broken record player, but New World begins delivering second free rounds of transfer servers, and yeah, this will happen on February 22nd if you just want to get out of your server, because maybe you're being dominated by one faction that just completely takes over the entire map with, anyways, just some frustration there, as you could tell. And that's gonna wrap up today's episode of RPG and MMO gaming news. I really do appreciate if you made it with me so far, as the watch time significantly helps out with the algorithms. With that being said, everyone, I will finally let you guys go. Hope you guys have a blessed night, and I will see you guys next time. Cheers again, everyone.